And I think any instructor, any group exercise instructor who's been in the industry a long time knows that you've got to keep innovating, you've got to keep moving forward, you've got to keep changing. The general public aren't obsessed by group exercise as much as you and I are, but they're also looking for the next thing. People get bored.
So, Rachel Holmes, welcome to Group Fitness Real Talk. How are you?
I'm very well, Will. How are you? Great to be here again. Second
Yes,
appearance on the
second period,
podcast.
indeed. So we were just talking before we started recording because summer has arrived in the Northern Hemisphere.
It surely has. It's probably the hottest day so far in the UK as we're recording this.
You're always up very early though, right? Because you teach early morning on demand and live classes or on demand?
Yeah, live classes. I stream pretty much 7 days a week
Yeah, I thought so.
from, yeah, 6 a.m. I start.
Okay, so you're enjoying the bright light in the morning.
It makes such a difference. So I usually get up about 4:30 and then set up, do a little bit of work. And
4:30.
I always do my 4:30. I have a little boy as well. I have a 9-year-old, so I've always got to get up ahead of him anyway. And he's an early riser.
Okay.
And then set up all the equipment. I like to just have that hour with my coffee, plan the day, and then get ready to do the live stream.
Do you have all your equipment? This is a question that I often ask people that do a lot of live streaming. Do you have your equipment set up all the time, or do you have to set it up again every time?
Yes, I have a studio here at home.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I actually built this house and I built a studio on it with it, and everything's all set up so it's ready to go. Mics, mixer, all the music's ready, everything's is there. So I can just literally come down, click. I always do one test before I go live, and then we're ready to rock.
Yeah, that makes a big difference, right? Like the thing I like the least about doing anything online when you're having to present is the setup. Just because like if you're having to pack it away and then set it up again, you're redoing it every time. Okay, cool. So maybe for the purposes of this, you could just introduce yourself a little bit to the audience. Obviously, some people will know who you are, but we've got listeners from the States who might not be quite as familiar. You're obviously famous in the UK for sure.
I don't know about famous. I have been a group fitness instructor since 1986, which is incredible. So a long year. I've had a long career in the fitness industry. I've worked for Nike, Red Bull, FitPro. I've toured around the UK many, many times. Created many different programs. My forte really is helping group exercisers improve their teaching, their coaching, and their businesses. We have created many programs that group fitness instructors will do and have done. Fitness Pilates being one of the most popular. Everything from Walk Fit, Lift Lean, Meno Fit, programs that we've created over the years. Created an online business over 20 odd years ago now, Choreography to Go. Way before many even people an internet connection or even had an email address. Started very slowly. Yeah, started on dial-up actually. Started really slowly. Built the website, and currently, really after the pandemic. We decided to stay completely online, apart from doing live events. So I stream, I have a B2C business, a subscription business. We also offer level two, level three, and level four qualifications that we deliver live on Zoom, lots of CPD, and constantly evolving as a training provider. And plus, do lots and lots of business coaching, social media coaching, and teaching for group fitness instructors who want to expand their business and increase their income.
Uh,
In a nutshell,
Perfect. I feel like you've done that before.
a few
Elevator
times.
pitch down on lock. Actually, last time we did this, we were talking about social media, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Yeah, we might have to revisit that. But today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. So the reason I wanted to get you on is because we recently did our triple threat series where me and the team identified sort of where the big trends in fitness and we kind of put them into some buckets. And I know that certain of those topics really struck a chord with your community. I know that it kicked off like a very, very big discussion on Facebook with many, many contributors contributing very long comments, which was very interesting to read. So I wanted to get you on to talk about sort of three things. One is to get your thoughts on the triple threat series and some of the trends that we identified and whether or not you agree or disagree. Obviously, if you disagree with me, that's great because I love a little bit of a debate. And then I wanted to talk to you more about education because obviously, as you just mentioned, you're an education specialist and you provide a lot of different education. And having been in the industry for such a long time, having so much experience in the
This is
industry,
true.
you've seen how the approach to education has sort of grown and changed, getting us to where we are now. And I think there's some interesting stuff that we can talk about there. And I just wanted to finish off with a little bit about music. So we did our triple threat series, and as I said, I know that this made a bit of an impact with the people in your group. What were your thoughts on some of the topics, and were there any that you thought were particularly interesting or insightful?
Oh, well, this is fascinating. So the first time I saw the podcast pop up, I was like, great, we'll relaunch the podcast. Can't wait. What's this all about? Triple threat. And then listen to it, and we were like, wow. This is incredible. Lots of things that I'd have been thinking about, but maybe had not articulated it, or just had private conversations with other presenters and educators thinking along the same lines. I don't think anyone had ever broached this subject before or said it publicly. And straight away, I wanted to get the debate going. I wanted to get it out to my community. So I reposted the link in all of my Facebook groups, business groups, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere to get people's opinions. And it was quite explosive. Well, really, I think it exploded. It really did explode. There was some amazing insight and really good conversations from everybody. I loved it. I think this is exactly what the fitness industry needs. We need these types of conversations. We need to talk about what's happening, where it's going, what's popular, what's not popular, and we need to get everybody's opinion. So for me, it was absolutely fantastic, and I mean, it really was set the Facebook groups alight.
Indeed, that was the so where I think most specifically we're talking about the pre-choreography or
Mm.
the end of ETM slash the end of pre-choreography episode. We talked about this a little bit offline, which is one of the reasons I was keen to get you on. I remember saying to you that I have to admit I knew that it was like our purpose for doing this was to stimulate some conversation, but at the same time I didn't think that what I was saying was controversial because it just seemed to be. We were talking about Les Mills in particular. I obviously used to work for Les Mills, so I have like a lot of knowledge of how the business has been. And it's been quite obvious to me that they've done a bit of a pivot recently in that all of their programming since sort of COVID. It's great programming, by the way. Like all of it is great, but it's quite a change from body combat and body pump and body attack, which is verse chorus driven. And we can sort of debate what pre choreography is, but when I think pre choreo, I think movement to the beat with verse and chorus rather than sort of having the music on in the background would be my distinction. And so all of their new programs, sort of shapes and Pilates and ceremony and strength development, they all have music with them, but they're music agnostic. But I was so surprised that instructors hadn't seemed to have put that together. Maybe it's just
Mm.
because I'm in the industry and so I'm always thinking, I'm seeing what people are putting out, like whether it's a new program from Zumba or a new program from Les Mills. I'm thinking about, okay, where does that show that the industry is moving in terms of trends? And so I was very surprised that instructors hadn't noticed it as much as I suspected they might.
I think you're right. And to be honest, I had been thinking about it and had noticed it, but as I said, not really articulated it. From my world, my community, I'm generally dealing with freestyle instructors who are creating their own classes, their own
Mm.
brand, their own choreography, and I cross over into the Les Mills world in a quite a very small way. Although I've done body pump, body combat when it started, so 25 years ago, a long time ago, I'm not really in that world, but we are. After the pandemic, we've seen a huge shift with instructors, what they're teaching, what they're offering, what they're doing. Sadly, so many instructors left the industry after the
Mm.
pandemic. So many instructors went online. And we've just seen operators change, with what they're offering, their timetables, and we're seeing operators really developing their own signature programs, which again you and I can probably discuss at length. And from my perspective, I've seen Les Mills programs maybe disappear from some of the
Mm.
operators' timetables and being less. But to actually you articulate that and see that programs were changing and then really understanding why. And I think we can both know and see why um, Les Mills and similar are changing because the group exercise market is aging, instructors are
Mm.
aging, and we need to be bringing in new people, new instructors need to come into the market. So yeah, it was very much an eye opener. But yeah, when you look at it like that, it made complete sense.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this more at the end when we talk about music. But uh, I'm a lawyer by my former life is as a lawyer, and so I often think about kind of the regulatory environment. It used to be the case that before everything was digital, you could kind of get away with a lot with music that you can't get away anymore. One of the things I'm curious to note is that what are you seeing in your community? Now, I know we talked about this, and I definitely know that our average instructor age is older than the people sort of that are coming into the industry. So we obviously work with Pure Gym, and Pure Gym has a lot of young PTs that are just coming through. So they're doing college, they're at a Pure Gym because there's sort of 400 locations and it's their first job. And so we're working with sort of 20 to 25-year-old trainers who are just coming into the industry and have never taught. But most of our freelance customers on our shift subscription side are older. So it's 35 plus, and often it's kind of 45 plus. What are you
Mhm.
seeing with the people that are coming to you for education and working on that side?
Yeah, I think this does tie into the music as well. If you think, maybe look back 20 years, it was choreography. We
Mm.
were all working in 32 counts. So whether you were teaching step or aerobics, whether you were teaching high energy, whether you were teaching seniors, everything was choreographed. Exercise to music was
Well, when
choreographed.
I first
So the
arrived, you
music that,
didn't have you had exercise to
no,
music was your level two fitness instructor
yeah,
class, and you didn't have the option of doing a circuit style training.
no. I mean,
If
they were
if
there,
you
body
became a
conditioning.
class teacher, then you were doing it ETM.
Yeah, you were doing ETM and you needed music that was 32 counts. So you needed mixed music. And
Mm,
again, before Pure Energy, instructors were using DJ mixed music because they needed music that was mixed.
mm,
Obviously, we've seen that evolve into more conditioning formats, hip formats, interval formats. And so the need for choreography and choreography ideas has slowly been diminishing. If I just look in my area, at one time I think there was only three or four of us that were still teaching any kind of choreograph, apart from Zumba, any kind of choreography,
mm,
freestyle as we know it, and that's changed. Any timetable, you look on the timetable, there's very few, if any, choreographed aerobics, air quotes,
yeah.
high, low, or step. Now, you've got instructors who've aged with that format, like myself, who do still teach it and still command, big numbers, they've
Mm,
got big communities. So it's still there in pockets around the country. But as for new instructors coming through, many many younger instructors have never been exposed to that. They've never seen that. They've never
mm,
been to that type of class. So they're not really aware of it. They're only aware of maybe from Les Mills and after. So I think we are seeing an aging population of instructors, and we are seeing new instructors come through that haven't been exposed to that style of exercise to music. Maybe they've seen Zumba. So you're definitely seeing less of an uptake in exercise to music, the level two group fitness qualification. We still offer it and we still sell it and it still sells, but nowhere near in the quantity that
mm.
it did maybe even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah, this is
But
re
here in the UK, it's still the gateway qualification, really. If people It's still a good qualification, a good foundational qualification to do, and then you can springboard into other things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that in the community chat that you had in your thriving community of instructors who really care, who probably will
Yeah,
be listening to this podcast episode.
they
So
will.
shout out to your community.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting to see because you saw a lot of comments about people who said my classes are still busy, and that was a
Mm,
really interesting distinction. And I think that this was one of the realizations that people had, and it's certainly something that I was seeing. It's not that people that teach a really good choreographed class are not having people coming to them anymore.
mm,
Because if you're someone that's been teaching choreography and your classes like it, and you've been building that class and nurturing that class for a long time, that class is probably still big. The thing
mm.
is, there's just no one coming in under that.
Coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all of the new ones are influenced by F45 and boutique
yeah,
studios that don't do choreography, and it's
yeah.
so it's funny because I think maybe that was where the disconnect was with instructors who teach ETM. They see
I
their
think so.
classes still being full, and they don't realize that that's actually becoming more and more rare, and that the general industry is moving on.
And I think from an operator's perspective, if they've got one person that is teaching a choreographed aerobics or step on that timetable, it's really hard for them to cover it. It's
Mm,
hard to get anybody else to do it. And then there's just one person can teach that one class.
yeah.
And I suppose for an operator, it just doesn't make sense. So many of those classes have just disappeared, which has enabled that instructor to go into the community and take the
Mm,
community with them or go online.
yeah.
Now, there's still an option to do it online. So yeah, I think, and then of course we're heavily influenced by what's happening on social media, Instagram, TikTok, very heavily. And I thought your triple threat about the influence. We can see something on social media, the algorithm, we might click on a step video and the algorithm then will continually
So a
throw
step,
us
yeah.
step videos. And there's a trend at the moment that you may have seen, which is very low step, very fast, hip hop music, R&B. And B.
Mm,
And you think, okay, this is the next big thing
yeah, yeah, totally,
because
totally. And it
the
looks
algorithm
fantastic,
is
right? And it's a class with like it's a class
absolutely,
with 100 people. It's awesome. It's the type of class
yeah.
that I want to go to.
Yeah, 100%. And so the algorithm keeps showing you more of that around the
Mm.
world. So you
But
think, oh
there's
my
like
gosh, this is
one of
the
those in each city.
yeah.
And you just get
There's
shown
one
all
in
of
the
them. Yeah.
US. Yeah. One in the US and one in
Yeah,
Manchester, and that's
exactly.
it. And so social media can drive almost a micro trend,
Mm,
or it can give you a false sense that this is a trend, and it's actually not really a trend. It's just the algorithm is showing you more of something that you've had a look at.
yeah,
So
yeah, totally.
you did a fantastic podcast about that, and I think people then actually yeah, this is just a micro trend that's not catching on. It's not something that's big or global. It's
Mm.
just very popular on social media that day.
Yeah, but those classes are great. I think it's as someone that like views myself as an instructor advocate, which I know that you do as well. It is really important to me that people don't take away the trend information and don't sort of internalize that as being I shouldn't be doing pre-choreography
Mm,
anymore because I think it's super important and I think it serves a space in fitness that is like it's how I got into it. It's how you got into it too,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it really does create community and make people enjoy movement and enjoy being in their bodies and enjoying what their bodies can do in such a fundamental way that I wouldn't want anyone to take away that they shouldn't do that.
Mm,
It's more thinking about how if you're an instructor and there's also sort of two types of instructor, I think. There's an instructor who's a hobbyist and then there's an instructor who is doing it because it's their career. And I think
mm,
that those two people have to approach the industry with different things in mind. If
mm,
you're a hobbyist and you really love your choreographed classes, then you should keep teaching them until they no longer
mm,
serve you. But if
yeah.
you're someone that is wanting to make a living from the fitness industry, then I think you need to think about how you can diversify, which is kind of the theme that I wanted to get through. Rather than drop all your choreo classes, it's more think about how you can, if this is important to you and it's your career, how can you diversify to make the most of sort of the overall
Mm.
trends?
I think you're right. And I think you've got to, there are micro trends all around the country and around the world. But I think if I think you've got to have one foot in doing what you're doing and serving the clients in front of you to your highest ability. But you've also got to be, you've got periphery vision. So you're looking around the corner, what's coming next? What are people liking? What are youngsters liking? What's happening on social media? What's happening in culture? In a wider, what's film, TV, music,
Mm,
all of that plays a part into what we offer. And I think any instructor, any group exercise instructor who's been in the industry a long time knows that you've got to keep innovating, you've got to keep moving forward, you've got to keep changing. The general public aren't obsessed by group exercise as much as you and I are in the room. we, we're obsessed with it. We couldn't imagine doing anything else. But general public, no, they're also looking for the next thing. People get bored.
mm.
So it is important to serve at your highest, but also you've got to keep listening and watching. And that's why that podcast was so good, because even if it just makes somebody think, what do I want to be doing this time next year? What is happening in a few years? Where is music licensing going? Do I
Mm.
need to start to just think a little bit ahead, because things are changing and they're changing quite quickly. And I think they're changing quicker now as you and I sit here today in 2025 than they ever have. Social media, AI, it's driving change. We live in a very changing world.
Mm.
The world in general is changing. So I think you've got to be agile. And the podcast was great. It definitely highlighted what people need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, that's actually. a nice segue into what I wanted to talk about next. We didn't even plan that. But like I did want to sort of talk about the way things are changing and how that has impacted the way you're approaching education within your business. Obviously, off the back of our Triple Threat series, we also made an announcement about SkillSync, which is our program where we're allowing qualified instructors who are certified in approved formats, and we have a list of those formats. We can chuck it in the show notes. We're allowing people to cross credit into Shift so that they can take advantage of our subscription and teach in as many places as possible. Now, there's a lot of reasons we're doing this, but one of the biggest is that we realize that a lot of instructors who've been teaching for a long time have skills that they can leverage, but they might not realize how they can leverage those skills. And
Hmm.
also, I kind of came to a realization that we as a company, Shift as a company, have always been focused on helping to our instructors to make money. So teach as many places as you can. That's why we're license free. But we also realize that we are less a group fitness education company and more of a group fitness content subscription. So our goal is to have this app that allows instructors to teach anywhere, that allows someone to, if they're not really a stretch or mind body type of teacher, they can still do a mind body class. So if a mind body class is not being able to be taught because the instructor's away, then they can stand in and do that sort of thing and teach a decent class every time. And whereas, but that doesn't mean that we don't think that education within fitness is important, but we think it's better done by people that are doing specialist education, and then we can recognize that education. How are you finding the general approach to education within the industry? Is it higher, lower than it was before? Ways it's changed?
It's changed. Whereas we pre-pandemic were doing education around the country and doing lots of live events, we'd already sort of segued into doing hybrid. So costs were rising, as it is for everything, hiring
Mm,
venues, lectures, hiring the right staff to lecture and tutor, assessors, all of those costs are rising. So after the pandemic, as a business, we decided to stay online and
yeah.
focus on our USP being delivering online. And we are seeing that across the board with all educators, really. There are a few notables who are still doing face-to-face education, but look at education generally, look at universities, look at colleges, look at
Mm,
schools. You know, education is changing, and people want it accessible. They want it when they want to be educated when they're ready to do it. They want it now. They want to have a certain amount of time frame to do it. They want access to all those materials for the long term. They don't want you to allow them to only have the materials for a certain amount of time. And we listen to our customers, and we can see that that's people are very, very busy.
mm.
Everybody is time poor. With all the will in the world, I'm sure everybody wants to take more education, wants to do more training, but it's time. And if we look at my customer, my average instructor, she's probably teaching multiple classes. She might also be, or he might be personal training. They're running a home. They might be doing a part-time job. They may be in a relationship. They may or may not have children. So they are pulled on in lots of different directions. So they want to be upskilled, but they want it to be done in a very time efficient manner. We've also found that people are more receptive to shorter modular type of approach.
Sort of an
So
on-demand approach rather than a
yeah,
do
on
it all in
demand.
one go.
Or yeah, or live, but in smaller chunks. I
Chunks.
don't think anybody wants to sit in front of Zoom for 6 hours, 8 hours. I think people want, okay, this is the subject, this is the information. I want to take that information, I want to go away and use it, then I want to come back and get the next step and then the
Mm.
next step. And we're finding that delivering education in that way is far more successful. And it's just a different approach to learning. People don't go to a classroom so much now, sit for 9 o'clock till 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock and go through all of the information. They are, accessing it online, live or live streamed or on demand.
I had an interesting conversation with Emma Barry when I was in the States. I'm sure
Hmm.
you know Emma
Yes,
from
I
way
do.
back.
Yeah, I
We
do.
were discussing it, and I think that some people have the impression that because you don't go to a 2 day training and sit through that entire training, that that the standard of education isn't as high now, or that people aren't doing as much. And Emma had an interesting perspective, which is that like now people are just learning from so many different sources. It used to be the case that if you wanted to learn how to be a better step instructor, for example, you had to go to a convention and you had to do that step class and be there the whole day, take 5 different classes because you couldn't see it online. Whereas now, people can learn fast. People can learn fast with AI. They can watch videos. They can do it in their own time. And they're kind of doing little bits of micro learning all the time rather than giving away a whole weekend to do just one chunk of learning. But it's interesting because it can sometimes think that because people aren't going to that convention or
Yeah,
going to that training and sitting there for a full 8 hours, maybe they're not doing the work. But we kind of are. We're just doing it in chunks all the time. If you're a fitness
yeah,
professional, then it's very likely that you're following a lot of fitness influencers on
yeah,
social media. And so it might seem like you're just scrolling, but scrolling social media and looking what other fitness professionals are doing with their clients is exactly what we used to do when we go to a convention.
mm.
It's just
It's
we're doing it digitally and in micro doses.
You're so true. If we've just launched reformer training, so they can do the reformer training, they can watch all the videos, they can do it with it live, then go away and
Mm,
practice all in your own time. Whereas in a face-to-face class, I would teach an exercise, everyone would get on the reformer and practice the exercise. So we take that part out of it. You go and do that in your own
yeah.
time, and while you're studying in your own time, here are a list of 20 of the world's best reformer instructors who all have online programs
Mm,
that you can go to that often they offer a 7 day free trial. So you can go to Tracy Mallet
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
can go to John Geary and you can go the world's best. You can go and see them and you can get a little bit of their magic. You can come back to the course then having experienced 10 or 20 fantastic instructors that you have then got so much more knowledge and experience than you did if you would have sat there on a 1 day with me just going through all the
Mm.
exercises and then not being able to experience, as you said, all of those amazing teachers. Again, if you go back before the internet, you're so right. I would have to go to, I would go to a Michael King course and I would go to a somebody else course and it would cost so much money and
Cost so
so much
much time
time.
and money, exactly,
Yeah,
going for a full weekend. And I mean,
yeah,
don't get me wrong, it was fun, and I do
yeah.
think that those in-person connectivity and community building events, it's a shame that there's not so many of them anymore. But it doesn't mean that we're not learning. It just means that we're learning in a different way.
And I think people are coming together with different events. We had the IFS event in Blackpool, that was very big. I think people are now maybe going to one thing
Mm,
in the year. We're seeing more and more education pop up. FitPro are back
yes.
this year with their convention, which will be great. But I don't think we're going back to those days. I don't think we're going back there. Life's changed, things
No.
have moved on, the industry's
People are
moved on.
busy.
Yeah,
People want the convenience of being able to learn in their own way. And
yeah.
another thing that this has made me realize I wanted to talk to you about, and it sort of relates a little bit to the way education has changed. So you obviously are very big on Pilates. You've obviously talked about some of the courses you've got before. What are your views on the on the change in Pilates? Because I know that when I first came to the UK 20 years ago, it was regulated in a way where you couldn't actually get CPD approval unless you were following the principles of Joseph Pilates. Whereas now, obviously, Les Mills have a Pilates program. Lots of people have a Pilates program. Some of them are Pilates fusion. There's hybrid Pilates classes. And I know that from watching social media that some Pilates qualified instructors are very unhappy about the
Mm,
sort of diffusion of Pilates, and
mm.
which they see as devaluing their specialist qualification. What are your views on maybe Pilates generally and the boom, and then also just on how instructors should approach the style they want to teach and how they educate themselves?
Well, I think
Big question.
big question, and lots of tangents we can go off. Personally, from a personal perspective, I think it's fantastic. I think if somebody goes to a Les Mills Pilates or a fitness Pilates or a classical Pilates, for me, that's fantastic. They're moving, they're
Mm,
exercising, and I think that's what I got into this business for, is to help people move and exercise on on a daily basis. So I think it's good. I also think if you think bigger picture, often somebody might go in and do a Les Mills, or they might train to teach the Les Mills Pilates, and they might think, wow, this is it. They might be a high energy in teacher, and they think, okay, I've got the offer of doing this training. Or they may have never done any Pilates training before because they may not have thought it was for them. They actually find they've got a passion for it, they like it, they've enjoyed it, therefore they want to know more. So then they decide to do fitness Pilates or level
Mm,
three, or go on. So I think from personal perspective, it's good. I think that it's good that the general public have got choice,
mm,
and they can find the type of Pilates that they want to teach. I also don't think that the classical Pilates teachers have anything to worry about, because there's a huge amount of people that want a classical style of Pilates, and there's a market for that. There's also a market for people that want a fusion, a fitness
mm.
type. I think it's all good. I think it's a positive, and I don't see any negatives with it at all. I think I was listening to the Escape podcast, and the numbers of people that are joining Pilates classes in the US it was
Mm.
unbelievable how many people are coming through the door to do Pilates. And we've never really in the fitness industry been able to penetrate those people who aren't currently exercising. And if they're coming through our door because of Pilates, because of what they're seeing on social media or any of the schools that are doing it, I think it's a positive. Well, I'm all
Yeah,
for it.
it's
And I
funny,
only
right?
see this going up.
Like the people, even if they don't know what Pilates is, they know that Pilates is the thing that they should be doing.
Mm,
And
mm.
so that's created a thing. It's like when Zumba came in, right? Like a lot of people who had
Yeah,
never been to a fitness class wanted to try Zumba because they heard of Zumba. And sometimes you need that sort of top line name recognition. And in order to get that, you need to be a little bit less restrictive on the types and numbers of people that are teaching.
mm,
It's interesting. Whenever I see an instructor sort of complaining that another style of Pilates might not be the true Pilates, I always just think, guys, we're now competing with online trainers who may have just never done any training whatsoever.
mm.
So better to
Yeah.
support your fellow instructor that's actually delivering
Mm.
group and delivering in person, because you may lose it to an influencer who just likes the word Pilates and and is
Yeah.
going to put it in her Instagram bio and steal all your customers.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of high profile influencers who've got Pilates memberships with thousands, if not millions, of clients and
Jennifer
customers.
Aniston just is now a queen of
Yeah,
Pilates. I
yeah,
love P-Vols, by the
absolutely.
way.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. But I think on the whole, it's bringing people in. And from
Mm,
an instructor's, I think for an instructor that then finds that they really enjoy this type of exercise and want to teach it, then often they want to learn more and
mm.
go on and do further qualifications and accredited courses.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in your view, we haven't seen the peak of Pilates just yet. There's
No,
there's
I think
still
this
there's
is
still more
going
to go.
I think this is going to go up and up and up, up. I think maybe reformer. I mean, this week I've spoke to probably 5 or 6 people who are opening reformer studios, and I'm in Middle England, Derbyshire. This is
I personally think that reformer, and it's not that the demand for reformer isn't going to stay kind of good. It's just that reformers are really expensive, and it's just
hmm
it's an expensive thing to invest in. So if you're someone that's listening to this and you're teaching reformer, I think that people are going to be wanting more and more reformer. But
mm,
mat Pilates is just the easiest thing in the world to teach, and
mm,
people want that too. It's kind of
yeah,
if I'm thinking what would I recommend an instructor do, it would be
agreed.
do mat Pilates, because you can teach that anywhere. You're not
Yeah,
required to deliver it in a place that only has invested in that expensive equipment.
agreed. But it's. I think it shows the breadth of Pilates.
Mm.
People can say, oh, they can see what reformer is. They can maybe, and the
When
price
did
of a
you launch
reformer
Fitness
classes are
Pilates? While I'm thinking about it, just to show the
23, 20, just over 20 years ago, almost 23 years ago.
okay, so well ahead of
Yeah.
the trends.
It's always, I mean, the fitness industry, it's always been there, hasn't
Mm,
it? I remember when at the IDEA convention in the US, when they first started doing Pilates, and then they introduced their mind body stream into their convention,
mm.
and then again here in the UK at the FitPro convention. And it's always been there. It's always been here in the fitness industry, but obviously the last probably 5 years it's really become more mainstream. And then the last year, I would
Yeah.
say, do you think it's totally mainstream now? It's
Uh,
crossed
I
over?
think it's crossed over. I don't think there's many people that don't. I think that if you
Mm.
say Pilates, even people like my dad get a mental vision of what a Pilates class is, even if he's never done it. My dad
I think
famously has
so.
never done Pilates.
Yeah. Do you think it's overtaken yoga? Do you think it's become more popular than yoga?
I think yes, because I think the thing that Pilates has going for it is that it's a strength workout, whereas
Mm.
yoga has the holistic elements. And I know from myself, like I love a yoga teacher that's really into it. I don't connect with the spiritual stuff. I enjoy the
Hmm.
practice, and when I'm there, I try and put myself into that different way of thinking because I'm very respectful of the approach to yoga.
Hmm.
It's not really me, and I can't see myself delivering it. Whereas because
Hmm.
Pilates has a lot of the same kind of gentle and restorative vibes, but it comes from like a strength and scientific background rather than a
Yeah.
spiritual background. Not to suggest that yoga isn't scientific as well. I don't want to have yoga instructors coming at me for but yeah, I think it has more legs than yoga because it captures into the strength trend, and also
Yeah, I
just
do.
the huge amount of hybridization that's coming in. People that are doing like a Pilates mixed with some other type of class, or incorporating it into a strength workout or a body weight workout and adding elements of Pilates.
Mm.
It's so versatile.
It is so versatile, and everyone can do it. It
Mm.
can be tailored for everyone, from a complete beginner, rehab, people that have had an injury, illness can come into a Pilates class, with a good instructor who can then modify it for them, right the way up through to an athlete. So yeah, I think you're right.
As we've been talking about this, actually, it's reminded me a bit of when Soul Cycle came in and became,
Yeah.
and because like if I think of what are the things that have really hit the cultural awareness and become mainstream, it's things like Zumba, Soul Cycle for a period, but that's kind of dropped off again now, and
Mm.
Pilates has sort of taken its place. But I remember I'd been teaching cycle. So cycle was one of the first formats I started teaching in 2000.
Hmm.
And then Soul Cycle came along, I think it was 2007, 2008,
Mm.
and they obviously were doing upper body movements on the bike. And I just remember
Yeah.
that the hate from
Yeah.
from existing cycle instructors who were basically told, we're cycling like you should be cycling like you're cycling on the road. And I felt like that when I saw Soul Cycle. I was like, well, this is silly and ridiculous. But but then I realized it was bringing so many people into cycle
Yeah.
because they're excited by it. And if you're in a dark room on a bike that doesn't move or go anywhere, then you really can. It's not contraindicated. You can do a little bit of stuff with the upper body, but it's a little
Yeah.
bit like the Pilates purist now. It's the thing
Yeah.
has hit mainstream, and
Yeah.
it's maybe diluting what you thought that modality was,
Yeah.
but it's bringing more
Yeah.
people in, and that will ultimately mean that more people will find you as well.
I think so. And I think if you're a good teacher and you keep up to date and you deliver a great class, people are going to find you. They're going to keep coming to you. I think any instructor's got nothing to fear. I
Mm.
really don't, whatever your background or qualifications. And we've just got to keep learning. We've got to be open to new, and culture just change, and trends change, and we just need to adapt with it as well.
Indeed. Okay, so we have one thing left to talk about, and we touched on this a little bit at the beginning. But as I mentioned, we both work with Pure Energy. So if you're in the UK, you might know Pure Energy Music. If you're in the US, you may not be as familiar with them because they are a UK company. But essentially, they create fitness-specific rights included music. And Rachel, seeing as you're a fully online business, maybe you want to explain why that's so useful for someone that's wanting to teach online.
Absolutely. Well, I could not operate my business without the Pure Energy music app. It's so phenomenal. Using original artist music is not allowed on any of the social media platforms. So there's
Even
no
though people do
license.
it.
Even though people
But
do,
they get
it's not.
muted or takedowns, right?
They do. And you do risk your account getting frozen, shut down, disappeared. Um, and yeah, it's just the world of music is very, very complicated, and it's complicated across the world.
Mm,
Different territories have different rules. Different social media platforms have different rules. What
mm.
is okay on Facebook or Meta is not going to work on YouTube, or something that's going to work on TikTok. They're all very, very different. So having a solution that is completely designed for fitness, so it's designed with fitness professionals, with DJs together, so that all the tracks, all the music is curated for a fitness class. So the dips, the highs, the lows, the levels, everything is specific to group exercise, which is phenomenal. Um, and it just means that you can create an individual experience online, which is what I really love. And I've always been around creativity and being individual and using your personality. And with the Pure Energy music app, you can do that. You can take an album, you can listen to the album, and you can create an amazing experience that is completely unique to you, that you can deliver online, you can deliver it on any of the platforms. And of course, you can create your own passive income workouts, programs that you can then sell as part of your
Yeah, right. Because
business.
this is the
It's
big thing is
wonderful.
that not only can you deliver the music on streaming, but you can also record it. Because
Yeah,
as instructors often don't realize, there's like five different layers of copyright that exist in each
yeah,
song. And so
yeah.
if you're putting something into a an on-demand library, which is something that I recommend that anyone that's teaching online does, because as you said, it's
Done.
an opportunity to create passive income from work that you've done before.
Hmm.
It's a music solution that allows you to do that. So stepping away, where do you think, how do you view music in relation to group fitness? Like now, do you think that music has changed in the tastes of people, or how are you approaching the way you select the music for the various modalities that you teach?
I think if you are teaching, there's certain classes I think that do require original artist. So if you're teaching aqua or you're teaching older adults or seated,
Mm,
it's quite likely that you are going to be wanting music that people know that they can sing along to, whether it's 60s, 70s, 80s, noughties. There's always going to be a demand for that type of music for sure. And we see a lot of the dance programs that that are popular. Again, they use music that is popular, well known, people can sing along to.
mm,
And of course that's fine, but there's a cost to that. So there is a cost to using original artist music, and the PPL, I think recently have just put that up again. So
mm.
there's a cost per class. So that's got to be taken into consideration. I also think people don't, or some instructors don't understand or don't realize that any of the operators, they have to pay huge amounts
Hundreds of thousands
to,
of
I
dollars
mean,
or pounds
yeah,
per year.
huge amounts to PPL and PRS. It's a huge sum that they have to. So if they've got an extensive timetable across a week and they're having to pay £4 or £5 per class,
That's what people don't realize, right? So, and
yeah,
my view on this has always been if 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 as an instructor you're having there's a £5 charge being placed on
mm,
your class for using original music, that's immediately £5 that can't go to you as a pay rise.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
I'm often when instructors are fighting against using this, I'm like, guys, but if you maybe like embrace it, that could be a good argument for why your pay could go up a couple of pounds per
Mm,
class. Share it with
yeah.
the gym because they're making a big saving.
Yeah, it's huge, and obviously a big operator, they are very easy for the license, the PPL and the
Mm.
PRS to go and work it out exactly how many classes and how many people are coming through the door. Um, so I think from an instructor, it's a cost. It's if you do want to use original artists, there's a cost attached to that. Um, but if you're using something like Pure Energy, it's all rights included. So there's no licensing, no PPL, no PRS is required, and you can use that extensive catalogue of music. I mean, it's just growing on a daily basis. Everything from mind, body, all the way through to high energy drum and bass. It's all there. What's important is you do have to take the time to listen.
Mm.
So you've got to listen to the music, you've got to know the music, you've got to understand where the music's going, and then you've got to create the right class to match the music. Um, Again, many people are teaching different formats. There's all kinds of brands that instructors can do and use, but again, the music will, you've got to pay for it if you want original artists, basically.
Do you create, how often do you, this is a sort of a, this is not so much a technical or music question, it's more just a, how do you actually do it? How often do you create a new playlist for your classes? Do you do like a one for the
Every day.
week or is it
No, every
every day's a
session.
new No, really?
It's every day. I think because I know the app so well, I
Okay, you're
know all of
familiar
the
with it.
tracks. I'm really, really familiar with it. So, um, and I use a lot of the hit protocols.
Mm.
So I know a lot of the I know all of the protocols. I know them really well. So I know the type of vibe I want to create, the type of workout I want to create, and then I can match the exercises and the whole workout to the exercise. So usually the music comes first, and then I'll match whether it's going to be kettlebells, weights, bands, body weight, choreography. I'll match it after that.
Great. So that kind of brings us up to sort of our time. Are there any final thoughts that you've got that have been percolating away as we've covered off uh, the triple threat? So pre-choreography and changes in the industry. There's my thumb up again. Music and the approach to education.
No, I think as a Fit Pro, I think just be really optimistic about the future. With change, there's always there's always opportunity. And I think if you invest in your education, however that may be,
Mm,
if you keep on top of what's happening in the culture, music, style, social media, trend, I think you'll always be able to create a fantastic business, whether that's a lifestyle business, whether it's a hobby business, or whether this is your career. There's so many more options to all of us now than they ever were 20 years ago. You
mm,
could only ever work in one or two places. You would be paid per rate, and that would be it. Now
yeah.
you've got the option of creating online. You can do retreats, you can do events, you can take people outside in the park, you can do walking with silent disco headphones. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And I think it's just staying optimistic and just keep looking to the future, listening to your podcast.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
perfect.
the
So,
future's bright.
indeed, I completely agree. I'm very interested to know where we're going to go because with all changes in technology and everything speeding up, it's getting harder and harder to think about where we're going to be in a year. But I know that I'll still be doing something in this industry is the one thing I can guarantee. So, final question: where can our listeners find you if they don't follow you already?
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook. I'm Rachel Holmes Fit. I'm on Instagram, Rachel L Holmes. I'm on TikTok, Rachel Holmes 01, YouTube, Rachel Holmes, or you can head over to my website, which is called choreographytogo.com, and there's loads of free resources from workouts to webinars that you can download and watch right away.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Rachel, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon.
I will, thank you, and good luck with the rest of the podcast. And we
Cheers.
look forward to more exciting topics from you, Will.
Indeed. Controversial topics coming ahead.
Absolutely.
See ya.